Hello dear aspirants, welcome to Epitome IAS. So dear students, we'll be continue to do the UPSC PYQ analysis. Today's topic would be constitutional and non-constitutional bodies from the Indian polity. Okay, so let us start with the first question. Consider the following organizations or bodies in India. Which of the above are the constitutional bodies? Okay, tell me which of these are the constitutional bodies. The National Commission for Backward Classes, the the National Human Rights Commission, the National Law Commission, and the National Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission. So tell me which of the above are the constitutional bodies. Okay, so whenever we are talking about the constitutional and non-constitutional bodies are nothing but the bodies which gets the recognition of the constitution, okay, directly by the constitution. Okay, so if you see here, the National Commission for Backward Classes, yes, this is a constitutional body and it recently got the recognition. Okay, it was established by a act. Okay, earlier it was a statutory body. So what is statutory body? Tell me, what is statutory body and what is difference between statutory and the constitutional body? Statutory body is nothing but a body or an organization which is established by an act of a parliament. Okay, any act. Okay, this is statutory body. Okay, but what is constitutional body? Whenever this particular organization or a body is recognized by the constitution, then it is called as a constitutional body. Okay, so if you see, the National Commission for Backward Classes was earlier a statutory body, but because of the recent constitutional status, it became a constitutional body. Yes, one is there. Then the National Human Rights Commission. Again, if you see, the National Human Rights Commission is a statutory body. It has no place in the constitution, right? So we can eliminate this option. The National Law Commission. Again, Law Commission is a non-constitutional body. Okay. The National Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission. Again, this is a non-constitutional body. So only one option A is the correct answer. They are asking how many of the, given options are constitutional body. So only one is a constitutional body. So the National Commission for Backward Classes. So first we'll be discussing about this National Commission for Backward Classes. So under this particular Constitutional Amendment Act, you have to remember this number also. Maybe the questions can be asked which amendment act, through which amendment act the National Commission for Backward Classes has given the recognition by the Constitution of India. Okay, so it is through 102th, what do you say, Constitutional Amendment Act of 2018. Okay, in 2018 made the National Commission for Backward Classes as a constitutional body. Okay, you should also remember the article. What is the article? Article 338B. So tell me what is Article 338 and tell me what is Article 338A. Okay, here we are talking about Article 338B, right? Now tell me what is Article 338 and what is Article 338A. Okay, so which article gives the recognition for the National Commission for Backward Classes? Article 338B. You have to remember this article also. It's very important. Initially, the NCBC was a statutory body. Okay, why it was a statutory body? Because it was established through a act of a parliament. Okay, so which act of a parliament? National Commission for Backward Classes Act of 1993. Through this act, remember this act also, through this act, this particular commission was established. Okay, just because it was established by an act of a parliament, this particular commission was a statutory commission. It was a statutory body. Okay, but because later in 2018, by this particular Constitutional Amendment Act, we gave recognition, constitutional recognition to this particular body, so it became a constitutional body. Okay, earlier only the National Commission for SC ST, it was a constitutional body. National Commission for OBC was a statutory body. Now it became constitutional body. Okay. Now it consists of a chairperson, a vice chairperson, and 3 other members. So you have to remember how many members total. It is a 5-member body. Okay, they'll simply make a statement and saying that it is a 3-member body. It is a 4-member body. So you have to remember it is a 5-member body. Okay, they are appointed by the President of India. Okay, who appoints the particular members or the chairperson? They are appointed by the President of India, and their tenure and condition of service are determined by the President of India. Okay, whatever the term, tenure, and also the conditions for the service are determined by the President of India. Okay, so this is about the National Commission for Backward Classes. Okay, now we'll talk about the National Human Rights Commission. So again, NHRC is one of the important bodies, okay, in India, but it is a non-constitutional body, or we can say it is a statutory body. Why? Because it has been established through an act of the Parliament. So which act? First you have to remember the act, that is the Protection of Human Rights Acts of 1993. Okay, remember this act, remember the year also, 1993. Through this act, the NHRC has been established. Okay, and the National Human Rights Commission is a statutory authority because of that. Okay, and it does not have any mention in the Constitution of India. Okay, then what is the composition? The composition is a chairman and 5 full-time members. Okay, 1 chairman and 5 full-time members. It is a 6 members body. Okay, what are the qualification? Qualification: a person who has been a Chief Justice of India or a judge of a Supreme Court can be a chairman. Okay, what is the qualification for the chairman of NHRC? He can be a CJI or a judge of a Supreme Court of India. Okay, then what are the qualification for members of the commission? That is a member who is or has been a CJI and the judge of a Supreme Court. If you see here, is or has, what it means, who is already serving or who has already served. Both the people who are actually serving currently or the people who has been serving earlier, matlab retired judges. Okay, so both are eligible for a member. He can be a CJI or a judge of a Supreme Court, both serving or retired. Okay, then a member who is or has been a Chief Justice of an High Court, again is or has, serving or retired judge of a High Court, not judge, Chief Justice of a High Court. Okay, then 3 members, apart from that, 3 members are appointed from individuals who have ground knowledge on the matters of human rights. Okay, and out of these 3 people, 1 member should be a women member. Okay, so this is the qualification for the membership of the commission. Then apart from that, we have some ex officio members also. Tell me, how much ex officio members? How much ex officio members are part of this particular commission? Tell me that. Then appointment: the chairman and other members are appointed by the President of India. Again, it is they are appointed by the President of India. And what is the term of office? The chairman and the member hold office for 3 years or until 70 years of age, whichever is earlier. Okay, either for 3 years of term or else till they attain 70 years of age. Okay, whichever is earlier, they'll be considering that. Earlier it was 5 years. Okay, now what happened? They changed it, they amended it, and now it is 3 years. Remember this, 3 years. You have to remember, these are very factual things, like who appoints, okay, how is it removed, what is the removal procedure, what is the term of office, what is the composition, everything is factual here. Okay, in constitutional and non-constitutional body, it is better you make a chart. Okay, you make a chart, you just write all the constitutional bodies first. Here, constitutional bodies, and what is the term, who appoints, what is the removal procedure, what are the limitation, everything you write in a single sheet. Make a chart, okay? So what will happen for constitutional body separately and for non-constitutional body, some of the important non-constitutional bodies, you have to, make a chart and you have to remember these, okay? Because it's confusing. Somewhere it's 5 years, somewhere it's 3 years, okay? Somewhere it's 65 years, somewhere it's 70 years. So these are very factual thing, and if you are making a chart, okay, properly, then if you are seeing it, you can compare and you can understand. Okay, that is the thing. And you should be asking, obviously, all the constitutional bodies. For constitutional body, whichever organization which is directly mentioned in the constitution, you'll be finding in the Indian Lakshmikant, right? So directly you take all those. But for non-constitutional bodies, those non-constitutional body which has been asked in the PYQs, it will give you an example of what are the important non-constitutional bodies. For example, now we are seeing about NHRC, and then we have seen about this law commission. So whichever non-constitutional body you are seeing in the PYQs, make a chart, okay? Mention all the details in that and then read it, okay? So initially it was 5 years, but later it was amended. Recently it was amended, and it was amended to 3 years, okay? Then what is the removal procedure? If you see, this removal procedure is same as the UPSC member. What is the removal procedure for a UPSC chairman and the member? The same procedure. Proved misbehavior, incapacity, office of profit, unsound mind, insolvent, convict, sentenced to imprisonment. So these are the conditions for the removal of the members. And who will be removing him or her? By the President of India. Okay. Then law commission. So we are actually seeing those options which were given in the particular question. We saw 4 options, right, in the question. So we are seeing each and every organization here, okay? So the law commission, it is neither a constitutional body nor a statutory body. Very important. So as we already saw, the NHRC was a statutory body, okay, because it was established through an act of an parliament. Okay, now if you see the law commission, it is neither a constitutional body nor a statutory body. What it means? It means that it neither got any recognition from the Constitution of India, and also it is not established through any act of parliament. Then how will these bodies are established? Usually, mostly, these bodies are established through an executive resolution by the government of India. So these bodies or organization are established through an executive action, okay, not by the act of parliament or by the Constitution of India. So that's why these organizations or these bodies, these commissions, they are neither constitutional body nor a statutory body. See, it is an executive body. Very important. Law commission is an executive body, and it is established by an order of a government of India. Okay. And what is the major function of this particular law commission? The major function is to work for legal reforms. Whenever the time goes on, whatever, most of the laws, we have in the current situation, they were of pre-independence era. Okay. So with time passes, with time goes, many legal, many laws, they get outdated. They get outdated. So there is a need for this reforms in the legal aspect. So this law commission, the major function of this law commission is to recommend to the government of India about the reforms, what and all reforms we can make in the existing legal aspect. Okay, that is the major job of the law commission. The commission is established for a fixed tenure. Okay, so whenever there is some body or organization or a committee which is established for a fixed tenure, for a fixed purpose, we call them as ad hoc committee, ad hoc body, ad hoc body. Okay, you will be reading about ad hoc committees in the parliamentary committees. So any organization, any body, any committee which is established for a fixed period, fixed tenure, for a fixed purpose. They call it as a ad hoc body. Okay, so this particular law commission is an ad hoc body, and it is a advisory body. What is advisory body? Advisory body matlab it just gives advices to the government. It will make some recommendations to the government. It technically means whenever they are saying it is an advisory body, it means it has the power only to give the advice. It doesn't have the power, to impose it. For example, if any advice this particular law commission is giving to the government of India, then it is not binding on the government of India to accept it. It is up to the government of India whether to accept or reject this particular advice. Do you understand? So this is called as advisory body. Okay, it is not binding on the government of India. And here the government of India, if you talk specifically, we are talking about the Ministry of Law and Justice. Why? Because this Ministry of Law and Justice is actually responsible for the legal reforms. Okay, so that's why this particular advice is given to the Ministry of, you know, Law and Justice. Okay, and it's up to the Ministry of Law and Justice whether to accept or reject that particular recommendation. It is not, compulsory to accept those recommendations. Okay, then what is the term of the law commission? It is 3 years. Again, as I already told you, somewhere it's 5 years, for some bodies it's 5 years, for some bodies it's 3 years, some bodies it's 4 years. So you have to remember the term of each of the body, each of the organization, like the important organizations. So it is 3 years for the law commission, very important. Then, when was the first law commission established? The first law commission was established in 1834. Remember this, they can make a question on this also. 1834, under the Charter Act of 1833. You'll be reading about the historical, evolution, right, of the constitution. You'll be reading about the acts, important acts which were, brought by the British. So one such act is Charter Act of 1833. Okay, under this act, the first law commission has been established in the year 1834. Remember this. Under the chairmanship of Lord Macaulay. Again, this is also important. They can make statements on this also. So, Lord Macaulay. Next, National Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission. Okay, National Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission. It is a quasi-judicial commission. It is a quasi-judicial commission set up under the Consumer Protection Act of 1986. It is established through an act of parliament, so it would be a statutory body, and it has a quasi judicial powers. Matlab it has some of the judicial powers also. Okay, the National Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission is headed by a chairperson, and it comprises of 7 members, 7 other members, which means total 8 members. Okay, the chairman is headed by a retired or a sitting judge of a Supreme Court. Okay, either a retired or a sitting judge of a Supreme Court. The eligibility for the chairman. And the main mandate of the National Consumer Dispute Redressal Commission is to provide speedy, economical summary of resolution of consumer complaints or disputes. Okay, this is the main function, main role of this particular organization. Tell me, is it a statutory organization? Yes, it is a statutory organization because it has been established by a Act of Parliament, that is Consumer Protection Act of 1986. Remember this. Maybe they will be repeating this particular question, this particular thing in next years also. Okay, once a organization or a body comes in the PYQ, you have to make sure that when it is repeated again, you should be able to answer it. Okay, then consider the following: demographic performance, forest and ecology, governance reforms, stable government, tax and fiscal efforts for the horizontal tax devolution. The 15th Finance Commission used how many of above criteria other than population and income? Okay. So here they are talking about the Finance Commission. Tell me, Finance Commission is a constitutional body or a non-constitutional body? It is a constitutional body. Okay. So here what they are asking is, first of all, the major function of Finance Commission is the distribution. It talks about the distribution of finances between the center and state. Okay, one. Second is, it also talks about the distribution of funds with the states, among the states itself. Okay, first it will be talking about the distribution of resources, funds between center and the state, and second it will also discuss the distribution among the states itself. Okay, so when they are talking about the states, only states, the distribution among the states, we call it as a horizontal tax devolution. Horizontal tax devolution. Okay, so there are certain parameters, certain criteria which the Finance Commission checks so that it will decide which state should get how much money. Okay, not all state the development is same, right? The population is not same, development is not same, so the resources are not same. So what happens is, this particular Finance Commission, it will be considering certain criteria to decide how much money each state will be getting. So they are simply asking in the 15th Finance Commission, this question was asked in 2023. So they were talking about the 15th Finance Commission. Later we also get the 16th Finance Commission. We have also constituted the 16th Finance Commission. So whichever is the latest Finance Commission, they'll be asking questions from that. Okay, so in this question they were asking about the 15th Finance Commission, and they are simply asking what are the criteria which are used for this horizontal tax devolution. Okay, so one such criteria was obviously the demographic performance. What is the birth rate? What is the death rate? What is the population? Okay, that is considered. Next, forest and ecology. Yes, this is also there to find out how much resources a particular state is having or not having. Then we have tax and fiscal efforts. Okay, how the state governments, how the state governments are, making the tax, how the taxes are there. Taxes are high or taxes are low. So that thing is also calculated. Okay, so 1, 2, 5 is the correct answer. But here they are asking how many of the above. So only 3. Option B, only 3 is there. Let us say you don't know this question, you don't know the answer, then in that case also you could go for the elimination technique here. Okay, so what is what thing you can do? First, see here, fourth one is talking about stable government. Okay, if you see other 3, demographic performances, birth rate, death rate, they are already available from some other reports. Okay, if we are seeing census, we are seeing socio-economic indexes, we can get these information directly. Okay, and if you see forest and ecology, again the forest report or any other report, we already have some sort of information in that also. And tax and fiscal effort, again we have some sort of information readily available for these things, which state is having how much percentage of tax or whatever, every information is already available. Okay, but in case of a stable government, it is subject to, it is arbitrary, right? It's not specific, like it is subject to confusion. From one person's perspective, they may say this particular state is a stable government, has a stable government, but for another person they may say it doesn't have a stable government. So this is subject to question. Okay, there is no readily available information on this stable government, right? So we can eliminate this. And even governance reforms, again there is no readily available information, there is no reports or information available in this matter also. So it is difficult for the Finance Commission to take these two parameters. It is easier for the Finance Commission to take the other three parameters. So that's why we can eliminate this option. Again, it's a very risky question. If you are doing that elimination also, there is no guarantee you'll be getting the correct answer. And whenever they are talking about this, how many of the above are correct, how many, they are not talking about which of the statements are correct or wrong. They are talking about how many of the statements are correct or wrong. In those questions, you have to be somewhat careful. Okay, so this question is one of the toughest question. Agar if you have studied about the 15th Finance Commission, what are the parameters they added, then it would be a easy question. Otherwise, it would be a difficult question. You should leave this question technically. Okay, so the answer is option B. So the 15th Finance Commission in India aimed to distribute, that's what I told you now, distribute the revenue among the states. That's what we call it as a horizontal distribution. Okay, and they have considered several factors. What are they? Demographic performances, forest ecology, tax and physical effects. Okay, we already discussed this. Consider the following statements. Attorney General of India and Solicitor General of India are the only officers of the Government of India who are allowed to participate in the meetings of the Parliament of India. Statement 2. According to the Constitution of India, the Attorney General of India submits his resignation when the government which appointed him resigns. Okay, so try to answer this question. First statement says that the Attorney General of India, and the Solicitor General of India, they both are the only officers of the government who are allowed to participate in the meetings of the Parliament of India. So according to the Constitution, when you are reading about the Attorney General of India, Solicitor General of India, you will be understanding that only the Attorney General of India is allowed to take part in the Parliament. Okay, this Solicitor General of India is actually not allowed to take part in the meeting of the Parliament. So we can eliminate this particular option. Statement 2. According to the Constitution of India, the Attorney General of India submits his resignation when the government which appointed him resigns. Again, see this. According to the Constitution of India. Here, this is the keyword here. So sometimes what happens, some things are usually followed because of the consensus. Okay, they just follow it out of consensus. They are not actually mentioned in the Constitution of India. Okay, so according to Constitution of India, this particular person, Attorney General of India, okay, this particular person, he will be removed by the President of India. Okay, and he holds the office with the pleasure of the President of India. This thing we know, we have read this. It does not mean that when this particular government which appointed him resigns, or when the government is gone, let us say the term period of the government is over and the government is gone. Now it does not mean that he has to resign. Instead, let us say the newly formed government is coming to the power, and this newly formed government and the new president, they are thinking that yes, this particular Attorney General of India is okay, and they are not ready to remove him, then there is no need for removing him. Okay, only condition is the newly formed government and the president should be supporting him. Okay, should consider him. If they are thinking to remove him, they can remove. If they are thinking to keep him, they will keep him. Okay, it is not directly mentioned in the Constitution of India. We can eliminate this option as well. Option D, neither 1 nor 2 is the correct answer. Okay, both the statements are wrong. Attorney General of India. First of all, this is a constitutional body. Why? Because it is directly mentioned in the Constitution of India under Article 76 of the Constitution. Remember the article. These are very important articles. Article 76 of the Constitution of India. The highest law officer of a country. Who is the highest law officer of the country? It is the Attorney General of India. Okay. He is appointed by the president on the advice of the government. Government matlab here they are talking about the prime minister and the council of ministers. Okay, on the recommendation of the prime minister and the council of ministers, the president will be appointing this attorney general of India. Okay, then he or she must be a person who is qualified to be appointed as a judge of Supreme Court. So whatever the qualification which is mentioned for a Supreme Court judge, the same qualification applies for the Attorney General of India. Now tell me, what is the qualification for the Supreme Court judge? Tell me that. Then what is the term of office? Again, the term of office is not fixed by the Constitution of India. The Constitution of India simply says this particular Attorney General, he will be occupying his position with the pleasure of the president. What is this pleasure of the president? It means if the president want to remove him, he can remove him at any time, like within 1 year, within 6 months, within 4 years. It's up to the president of India. Okay, if you want to remove him from the position, he is free to do. Okay, that is the pleasure of president. He holds office during the pleasure of president. And what are the rights and limitations of this Attorney General of India? Okay, there are certain rights given to him. For example, in the question we were talking about, he is allowed to sit or take part in the parliament, meeting of the parliament, right? So these are some of the rights given to him. So what are the rights? Let us see. He has the right to speak, and he has the right to take part in the proceedings of the houses of parliament. Both the houses of parliament, he can go and sit, he can talk also, he has the right to speak. Remember this, they will simply make a question, which of the following are the rights available to the Attorney General of India? 1, he has right to speak. 2, he has right to take part. 3, he has right to vote. So here, yes, he has right to take part in the proceedings of the in the parliament, both the houses of parliament, and he has right to speak also. Okay, and he'll be considered as a member of parliament while he's sitting in the parliament, but he don't have the right to vote. This is very important. He don't have the right to vote. Okay, so he has right to speak, he has right to take part, and he has right, what is that? He may be named as a member. Again, he may be named as a member, but he does not have a right to vote. This is very important. Then, he or she enjoys all the privileges given to other members of parliament whenever they are, attending the proceedings of the parliament. They are entitled with all the privileges and immunities that are available to the members of the parliament. Okay, he or she does not fall in the category of government servants. This is very important. They are not considered as a government servant, okay, as a government employee. That's why they are free to, privately they can go and, fight battles. What do you say? Legal battles, not the real battles, okay. So they can privately go and, fight legal cases. Why? Because they are not considered as a government employee. They are not considered that this particular person is only working for the government of India. No, that's not there. And he is not debarred from the private legal practice. Okay, he can legally go and practice his legal profession. The private legal practices. Okay, that is not debarred. However, he or she should not advise or hold a brief against the government of India. Only restriction is he cannot go against the government of India. Let's say one side the cases between the government of India and any other entity. Now he can't help, or he can't go and support this particular entity which is fighting against the government of India. Okay, that is the only condition. Otherwise, any other private legal cases, he can go and fight it. Okay. Then we have Solicitor General of India and Additional Solicitor General of India. And what these people do, they assist the Attorney General of India. Okay, Solicitor General of India and Additional Solicitor General of India assisting the Attorney General of India. Okay. Then we have something called as Advocate General of State. Okay, Attorney General of India, now Advocate General of a state. This is a state level body, and it is also a constitutional body. That's very important. Even the Advocate General of a state is a constitutional body. Okay, it is mentioned in Article 165 of the Constitution. Remember the number also, article number, it's important. He is considered as the highest law officer of that particular state, whichever state he is, appointed. In that particular state, he is the highest law officer of that particular state. Who is the highest law officer of India? That is the Attorney General. Okay. And who is the highest law officer of a state? That is Advocate General. Okay. Just like Attorney General in the national level, his position is equal to Advocate General in the state level. Okay. Mostly you will be seeing the similarities only. Okay. Second point is he's a chief legal advisor of the state government. For the state government, any legal matter. Okay. If the state government needs advice, it is given by the Advocate General. Then he is the primary lawyer of the state government. Whenever the government is going to, face any legal battle, any case which is against the government of that particular state, this particular person, Advocate General, he is the, what do you say, primary lawyer. Advocate General of the state is a part of state executive. Again, the Attorney General of India was part of a union executive. Okay. This Advocate General of a state is part of a state executive. Tell me what are the posts which come under the state executive? Who and all come under the state executive? One, we have governor, then we have chief minister, then we have council of ministers, and then we have Advocate General of that state. All these people come under the state executive. Now tell me who and all come under the union executive? Union executive, tell me. It's similar to this. Tell me. So obviously we have president, we have prime minister, we have council of ministers, and we have Attorney General of India. Okay, they all come under the union executives. Now let us go back to this particular thing. And who appoints the Advocate General? He is appointed by the governor of a state. Okay, then the person should be eligible to be appointed as a judge of an high court. There it was Supreme Court, here it is High Court. Okay, that. The term of office. What is the term of office? Again, it is not fixed by the Constitution of India, as in case of a Attorney General. It is not fixed by the Constitution of India. Instead, what they say, he or she will be holding the office during the pleasure of the governor. There it was pleasure of president. Here it is pleasure of governor. Okay. So he holds the office during the pleasure of the governor. And remuneration, who will be determining the remuneration? Remuneration will be determined by the governor. Okay. Term, office term. Obviously, office term is also determined by the governor. Whenever the governor want to remove him, he can directly remove. Okay. And again, as I already told you, this is not directly mentioned in the Constitution of India, that whenever the government, is gone, the term of government is over, then it is not directly mentioned in the Constitution that this particular person will be, resigning. If the new government and the new governor, they are okay with him staying, they will be letting him stay. If they want to change, they will change. But out of consensus, what happened? Usually they'll resign themselves. Okay? So this is the thing. Next question. In India, legal services authorities provide free legal aid, free legal services to which of the following type of citizen? So before going to that, tell me, free legal aid is part of which of the article of the Constitution? Tell me, free legal aid. Tell me whether it is part of DPSP or fundamental rights or fundamental duty? Tell me that. So now let us go to this question. Go back to this question. Persons with an annual income less than 1 lakh. Transgender with an annual income less than 2 lakh. Member of OBC with an annual income of 3 lakh. Then we have all senior citizens. Okay, they are simply asking which of these people are eligible, for the free legal services provided by the Legal Services Authority. Okay, simply they are asking. If you don't know the answer also, let us try to eliminate the options. Okay, so if you see option, this statement 4, it says all senior citizens. Okay, do all senior citizens, they are in need of the free legal services? The free legal services, what is the main purpose of the free legal service? The main purpose is those people who are poor, those people who can't afford to get the legal services. That is free legal aid, right? In article, DPSP will be talking about this. Tell me the article, I won't tell you. So this is the main purpose for the poor people, for the underserved people, to give them those legal services. That's why we are providing with this particular services. Now here they are talking about all senior citizens. Do all senior citizens need free legal services? No. There might be many senior citizens who are very rich. Okay, do they actually need the free legal services? No, they don't need. So that's why we can eliminate this option. So 4 is gone. 4 is gone. A, C we have. 2 is part of both. So you have to only find out 1 or 3. Okay. Again, if you see 1 or if you see 3 here, member of other backward classes. Again, you have 50-50, whether to get it right or wrong. But if you see here in this particular thing, the free legal services are given to people based on their economic background, like whether they are poor or not. It's not based on the caste background. Okay, so here they are talking about the caste, other backward classes, OBCs. So this is wrong actually. We can eliminate this. The correct answer is 1 and 2. Obviously, person whose annual income is less than 1 lakh, or a transgender whose annual income is less than 2 lakh. Okay, so 1 and 2 is the correct answer. Option A is the correct answer. Again, it's not easy to remember these numbers. Okay, how much 1 lakh, 2 lakh or whatever. You can't remember all the schemes, all the programs, right? So this is one of the difficult question. Then the government of India has established Niti Aayog to replace Human Rights Commission, Finance Commission, Law Commission, Planning Commission. So you have to tell the answer. Niti Aayog was established, okay, and it replaced which of the following body? The answer is option D, Planning Commission. Yes, we had Planning Commission, and this Niti Aayog actually replaced the Planning Commission. Okay, so D is the correct answer. So with that, we have completed this particular video. So we'll be continuing this particular topic in the next class. Okay, thank you, students.